Namaste, Dhanava Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we're here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 3, the Status Quo, Chapter 28, Kapilas' Instructions on the Execution of Devotional Service. Text 1. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Yogasya Lakshanam Vaksye Sabhijasya Nripatmaje Mano Yanaiva Vidhina Prasanam Yati Satpatam. The personality of Godhead said, O dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. Purport. The yoga process, explained by Lord Kapila Dev in this chapter, is authorized and standard, and therefore these instructions should be followed very carefully. To begin, the Lord says that by yoga practice, one can make progress towards understanding the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the previous chapter, it has been clearly stated that the desired result of yoga is not to achieve some wonderful mystic power. One should not be at all attracted by such mystic power, but should attain progressive realization on the path of understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, which states in the last verse of the 6th chapter that the greatest yogi is he who constantly thinks of Krishna within himself, or he who is Krishna conscious. It is stated here that by following this system of yoga, one can become joyful. Lord Kapila, the personality of Godhead, who is the highest authority on yoga, here explains the yoga system known as Ashtanga Yoga, which comprises 8 different practices, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. By all these stages of practice, one must realize Lord Vishnu, who is the target of all yoga. There are so-called yoga practices in which one concentrates the mind on voidness or the impersonal, but this is not approved by the authorized yoga system and is explained by Kapila Dev. Even Patanjali explains that the target of all yoga is Vishnu. Ashtanga Yoga is therefore part of Vaishnava practice because its ultimate goal is realization of Vishnu. The achievement of success in yoga is not acquisition of mystic power, which is condemned in the previous chapter, but rather freedom from all material designations and situation in one's constitutional position. That is the ultimate achievement in yoga practice. Text 2. Swadharmacharanam shaktya vidharmacha nivartanam daivalabdhena santosha atmavicharanarchanam. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of the spiritual master. Purport. In this verse, there are many important words which could be carefully, elaborately explained, but we shall briefly discuss the important aspects of each. The final statement is Atmavich Charanarchanam. Atmavit means a self-realized soul or a spiritual master. Unless one is self-realized and knows what his relationship with the super soul is, he cannot be a bona fide spiritual master. Here it is recommended that one should seek out a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him, Archanam. For by inquiring from and worshiping him, one can learn spiritual activities. The first recommendation is Svadharma Charanam. As long as we have this material body, there are various duties prescribed for us. Such duties are divided by a system of 4 social orders: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. These particular duties are mentioned in the Shastra, and particularly in Bhagavad Gita. Svadharma Charanam means that one must discharge the prescribed duties of his particular division of society faithfully and to the best of his ability. One should not accept another's duty. If one is born in a particular society or community, he should perform the prescribed duties for that particular division. If, however, one is fortunate enough to transcend the designation of birth in a particular society or a community by being elevated to the standard of spiritual identity, then his svadharma or duty is solely that of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The actual duty of one who is advanced in Krishna consciousness is to serve the Lord. As long as one remains in the bodily concept of life, he may act according to the duties of social convention. But if one is elevated to the spiritual platform, he must simply serve the Supreme Lord. That is the real execution of Swadharma. Text 3. Gramya dharma nivrittischa moksha dharma ratistata mita medhyadanam shasvad vivikta kshema sevanam. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life. Purport. It is recommended herein that the religious practice for economic development or sense gratification desires should be avoided. Religious practices should be executed only to gain freedom from the clutches of material nature. It is stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam that the topmost religious practice is that by which one can attain to transcendental devotional service of the Lord, without reason or cause. Such religious practice is never hampered by any impediments, and by its performance one actually becomes satisfied. Here, this is recommended as moksha dharma, religious practice for salvation, or transcendence of the clutches of material contamination. Generally, people execute religious practices for economic development or sense gratification, but that is not recommended for one who wants to advance in yoga. The next important phrase is mita medhyadanam, which means that one should eat very frugally. It is recommended in Vedic literature that a yogi eat only half what he desires according to his hunger. If one is so hungry that he could devour 1 pound of foodstuffs, then instead of eating 1 pound, he should consume only half a pound and supplement this with 4 ounces of water. 1/4 of the stomach should be left empty for passage of air in the stomach. If one eats in this manner, he will avoid indigestion and disease. The yogi should eat in this way. As recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam and all other standard scriptures, the yogi should live in a secluded place where his yoga practice will not be disturbed. Text 4. Ahimsa satyam asteyam yavadartha parigraha brahmacharyam tapasocham svadhyaya purusharchanam. One should practice non-violence and truthfulness. One should avoid thieving and be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean, study the Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The word Purusharchanam in this verse means worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially the form of Lord Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed by Arjuna that Krishna is the original Purusha, or personality of Godhead, Purusham Shasvatam. Therefore, in yoga practice, not only must one concentrate his mind on the person of Krishna, but must also worship the form or deity of Krishna daily. A brahmachari practices celibacy, controlling his sex life. One cannot enjoy unrestricted sex life and practice yoga. This is rascaldom. So-called yogis advertise that one can go on enjoying as one likes and simultaneously become a yogi, but this is totally unauthorized. It is clearly explained, very clearly explained here, that one must observe celibacy. Brahmacharya means that one leads his life simply in relationship with Brahman or in full Krishna consciousness. Those who are too addicted to sex life cannot observe the regulations which will lead them to Krishna consciousness. Sex life should be restricted to persons who are married. A person whose sex life is restricted in marriage is also called a brahmachari. The word asteyam is also very important for a yogi. Asetyam means to refrain from theft. In the broader sense, everyone who accumulates more than he needs is a thief. According to spiritual communism, one cannot possess more than he needs for his personal maintenance. That is the law of nature. Anyone who accumulates more money or more possessions than he needs is called a thief. And one who simply accumulates wealth without spending for sacrifice or worship of the personality of Godhead is a great thief. Svadhyaya means reading the authorized Vedic scriptures. Even if one is not Krishna conscious and is practicing the yoga system, he must read standard Vedic literature in order to understand performance of yoga alone. To understand that yoga alone is not sufficient. Narottam Das Thakur, a great devotee and an acharya in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, says that all spiritual activities should be understood from three sources, namely saintly persons, standard scriptures, and the spiritual master. These three guides are very important for progress in spiritual life. The spiritual master prescribes standard literature for the prosecution of yoga, of devotional service, and he simply speaks only from scriptural reference. Therefore, reading standard scriptures is necessary for executing yoga. Practicing yoga without reading the standard literatures is simply a waste of time. Text 5. Manam sadasana jaya, staryam pranajaya sanai, pachaharas chandriyanam, visayan manasa hridi. One must observe silence, requires steadiness, and practicing different yoga postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from the sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart. Purport. The yogic practices in general, and Hatha Yoga in particular, are not ends in themselves. They are means to the end of attaining steadiness. First, one must be able to sit properly, and then the mind and attention will become steady enough for practicing yoga. Gradually, one must control the circulation of vital air, and with such control, he'll be able to withdraw the senses from sense objects in the previous verse, it is stated that one must observe celibacy. The most important aspect of sense control is controlling sex life. That is brahmacharya. By practicing the different sitting postures and controlling the vital air, one can control and restrain the senses from unrestricted sense enjoyment. Text 6. Svadhisnyanam ekadeshe manasa pranadharanam vaikuntha lila vidyanam samadhanam tatatmanam. Fixing the vital air in the mind in one of the 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body, thus concentrating one's mind on transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called samadhi, or samadhana of the mind. Purport. There are 6 circles of vital air circulating in the body. The first circle is within the belly, the second circle is within the area of the heart, The third is the area of the lungs. The fourth is on the palate. The fifth is between the eyebrows, and the highest sixth circle is above the brain. One has to fix his mind and the circulation of the vital air, on the circulation of the vital air, and thus think of the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. It is never mentioned that one should concentrate on the impersonal or void. It is clearly stated Vaikuntha Lila. Lila means pastimes. Unless the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, has transcendental activities, where is the scope for thinking of these pastimes? It is through the processes of devotional service, chanting, and hearing of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one can achieve this concentration. As described in Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord appears and disappears according to his relationships with different devotees. The Vedic literatures contain many narrations of the Lord's pastimes, including the Battle of Kurukshetra and historical facts relating to the life and precepts of devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and Ambarish Maharaj. One need only concentrate his mind on such narration and become always absorbed in its thought. Then he will be in samadhi. Samadhi is not an artificial bodily state. It is the state achieved when the mind is virtually absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of God. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 7 on Wednesday. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Our glory to the assembled devotees, our glory to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Inhabitate Dham Ki Jai, Nishangapuri Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai, Gangamai Yamunamai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Shyam Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi, Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai, Scientific Yagi Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagi Ki Jai. Jai Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat Ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari
Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu Ji Ki Jai.
Merry Christmas. Ha ha Hari Bol.